Have I seen the telepathy tapes? I have, and I am not impressed. And I'll show you why I'm not impressed. I've got literally well over 100 years of books that prove unequivocally that what the telepathy tapes is finding isn't new. People have been researching this professionally since the 1700s. They don't tell you the rest of the story about what has been done additionally. They're still sitting there with the same tired ass argument of, does telepathy exist? Oh my God, do we think that telepathy exists? Bitch, we knew telepathy existed 100 fucking years ago. Where have you been? They were doing research into telepathy and finding the same things that telepathy tapes is finding in the late 1700s. They don't really mention that. I think the telepathy tapes is what's called a limited hangout. What a limited hangout is when an intelligence agency or some group comes out, they release a smidgen of superficial information and context around it that spins a story into what they want you to believe about the story. But they overlook the massive amount of information underneath that tells the real story. So you're propagandized into believing a little bit in piece about the story, but the whole truth about it, that telepathy research has been extremely advanced for over 100 years, 150 years that it's been like super advanced. They figured their shit out, all with an eye towards taking the natural emanations of the human nervous system, which is how telepathy actually works, and turning it into a technology that can be used against large groups of people. I've got the first 20 years of the Society for Psychical Research's journals. This started in the 1880s, and the British Society for Psychical Research, there was an American Society for Psychical Research as well, we're doing extensive tens of thousands of tests on people over decades into telepathy and ESP. Why? Because the high-level scientists, Sir Oliver Lodge and William James, and all the high-level neurologists and physiologists that were researching this were working with the British government to create a system of control for the populace, and they were trying to use telepathy as the base of that. If they could understand it and back engineer what the human mind does to connect with another human mind, they could turn it into essentially a form of radar, a form of broadcast that could do the same, that could do that synthetically. And they did, and that continued on. Hey, let's go all the way. That continued on using Tesla's technology on transmitters by Dr. Andrea Puharish. If you want the full story on that, that's in our book here, where he's talking about how it's been operationalized, how it's been out there being used by the Canadians, by the Americans, by the British, and then eventually by the Russians. And they got really freaked out when the Russians started using it because they no longer had full control of the technology. Now, you want to know how far it goes? That's how far it goes. We're way past that. Look at this. Look at this one. Science at V. This is a French magazine that has been massively covered up. This is from February of 1960, and it's about the strange experience aboard the Nautilus. The Nautilus was a Navy submarine that they went and parked under the polar ice cap, and they brought a psychic on board, and they were doing psychic experiments back and forth under the polar ice cap with the Nautilus to see if they could come up with a communication system for the naval fleet, because the submarines were useless under the ice cap and at certain depths and distances. So they were using telepathy as a form of communication to see if they could develop that into something that they could use technologically. The Navy covered this up. It was reported in France. I've got it right here. I will be releasing this full article on our website. I've got it right here, and I've got a second one from Constellation. This is another French magazine. Two of the same story, and then it was covered up. The Navy has been covering up telepathy and psychic ability because they've been using it themselves, and they've been developing technology that can influence the human mind from a distance for a very long time, for 80 freaking years. Telepathy exists. I agree with them on that. Telepathy is absolutely real. It is not limited to autistics. It is not limited to certain people. Everybody's got it. Some people have it better, and they have it better because of genetic differences in the brain in areas called the caudate putamen, the amygdala, and the hippocampus. Very specifically, I'm wearing technology right now that enhances mine. This is a story that the Telepathy Tapes is not telling you. This is the story that Mind Hacking Happiness is not telling you, because he's a Navy Fed. This is the story that the Monroe Institute is not telling you, because they're all feds. They're just an offshoot of MK Ultra. And you'll see the Navy boys, the Sean Ryans of the world, promoting all of this bullshit, but never telling you the truth about how deep it actually goes, because they're on the fucking dole. They're on the payroll. They're pushing propaganda. They're pushing disinformation to get you to not understand just what the hell has actually been going on. So when they're talking about UFOs and consciousness and psi, it's all connected. It's all just consciousness. What they're not telling you is that they're deploying shit on you that you don't even know exists. It's playing you. It's playing everybody. It's playing everybody out here in the public. But they need to acclimate you to it, because it's going public now, because it's being let out of the bag now. They need to acclimate the public to it now, and that's what disclosure is all about. It has nothing to do with them giving a shit if you know the truth. They don't care about you at all. George Carlin was right. They don't give a damn about you. They care about covering their asses so you don't find out what it actually is.
I have an Ivy League background, education. I work for DARPA on projects for the CIA, for the Navy, for example, wrote the Artificial Intelligence Code, tracked the Soviet nuclear submarine fleet. About 20 years ago, I realized some of my research was being utilized on my own citizens. Maybe you remember the Navy Yards shooter. He used a sawed-off shotgun, actually killed, I think, 13 people. He had a clearance to get on a Navy base, and he wrote on his weapon, and the news pretends like they have no idea what's going on. My ELF weapon, that stands for extremely low frequency, which the brain operates on, which we also communicate with submarines with because it penetrates everything. So he was convinced the Navy was behind it, and he just wanted revenge. He couldn't point the finger to stop it, so he just took it out on everyone on the base. It's really bad, but you know the people that see orbs in the sky? So what we do is we play with our own forces to make sure our trickery will work on the enemy. And those are directed energy weapons, of where we do intersecting beams or focus beams into the atmosphere. And notice they're always in the atmosphere, to excite the electron orbitals of the oxygen and nitrogen in our atmosphere. It's like a cat laser pointer, and we're making planes chase them.
That's exactly how they describe these things moving, like laser pointers.
Yeah, and so we can do it in 3 space.
Who is doing this? The Navy, you said?
Somebody. Let's just say a group, you know.
And you know this for a fact.
I know for a fact, yeah.